turn our attention to the hearing on House Bill 2121. Adam, could you give us a briefing? Thank you, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 2121 would increase the annual license fees of electric and hybrid passenger vehicles, trucks, and electric motorcycles. Under current law, the annual registration fees of an electric hybrid or plug-in electric hybrid motor vehicle is $50. An all-electric motor vehicle is $100. Motorcycles are $16, and then trucks with gross weight of less than 12,000 pounds are $40. Under this bill, it bifurcates electric and plug-in electric hybrids, where electric hybrid vehicles, the registration fee would be $85. The plug-in electric hybrid vehicles would be $100. And all-electric motor vehicles would be $165. And then all-electric motorcycles would be $30. Then it also adds for trucks less than 12,000 pounds that are electric hybrid or plug-in electric hybrid would be $125, and then all electric would be $200. Secondarily, in Section 2, it amends how these fees would be disposited. Under current law, they would go to the State Highway Fund. The bill would essentially allocate the fees as would be done for motor fuel tax, where 2/3 would go to the State Highway Fund and 1/3 would go to the Special City and County Highway Fund. And with that, I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Committee questions for Adam? Seeing none, thank you, Adam. First up, we have Representative Hoheisel. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the honorable members of the House Transportation Committee, as well as Senator Clays. It is an honor to be here today. HB 2121 does three different things, and so I'll start with the first one. But I want to make it clear, this legislation is not designed to punish EV owners. Kansas has seen incredible investments in EV-related industries, which deserve recognition. General Motors recently announced a nearly $400 million investment in their Fairfax plant to produce the new Chevy Bolt EV. Additionally, Panasonic's EV battery plant in DeSoto represents another major economic boost to our state. These awesome investments should be celebrated as the highlight of promise and the growth of EV technology. However, as more Kansans transition to electric and hybrid vehicles, we must address the imbalance in how these vehicles contribute to funding our roads, and I'll kind of get into that here. The State Highway Fund is primarily funded through the motor fuels tax of 24 cents per gallon. Gasoline and diesel vehicle owners pay a per gallon tax that directly funds the roads and maintenance. Meanwhile, EV owners who use these same roads pay little to no equivalent contributions since they do not purchase gas. Currently, Kansas assesses the $100 for full EVs, $50 for hybrid EVs registration fee. However, it is very important to note that these registration fees are not on top of the regular $30 to $40 registration fees that you and I pay for gas vehicles. So a EV owner is paying $100, whereas I pay $40 for my vehicle. You have to subtract that $40 out. So the net fee that EV owners are paying is just $60. And all the other states, as you guys could see on, I believe, a legislative research handout, no other state does it that way. The EV registration fees are on top of the normal registration fees that we all pay. Kansas is the only state that I found that it's not in addition to. So in a hybrid vehicle, I am paying my $40 regular registration fee, a hybrid vehicle is paying their $50 registration fee. That hybrid vehicle is only paying $10 extra from a regular gas vehicle right now in the state of Kansas. And if it's supposed to supplement the motor fuels tax, obviously that's, I think, 4 fill-ups maybe a year, depending on how much gas you're buying. So that's where the imbalance comes in. My original bill would have set the base fee to $175 for full EVs and $100 for hybrids. I do show some math on the second page of my testimony of how I came up with that number. However, during committee, I was presented with some different math and a different viewpoint from the industry. And in order to prove that I'm not trying to be, to punish EV owners, we all decided in compromise to amend the fees down a little bit. I accepted the math that was brought to me. And that's how we came up with the 165 for all EV vehicles, 100 for plug-in hybrids, and 85 for the motor, or the plug-in, or non-plug-in hybrids, kind of the hybrids that charge as you go. And that's how we came up with the 85 on that. And again, that's total. So on the electric hybrids, when you take out the $40, the electric hybrids will only pay $60 extra. The full EVs, when you take out the $40, will only pay $125 extra. So it's not on top of the regular registration fee that we all pay for gas vehicles. And I should preface this as well. I love EV. I want a Cybertruck. I want to purchase a Cybertruck bad. My wife won't let me purchase a Cybertruck. I think EV vehicles are awesome. So I am not trying to punish EV owners, but we do have an equity, and we have to start asking questions about how we're going to fund our highway plan in the future. And this is not the solution, not the end all, but this is a first step to get parity between motor fuels tax and EVs, to get parity between them, and then we have the discussion of how we fund our state highway plan in the future. The second portion of this bill fixes what I think was an error and oversight when we passed the original EV registration fees in, I believe, 2019. Right now, trucks like F-150 Lightnings and Cybertrucks are not how the statute is written. They don't pay any of that fee. They don't pay any EV registration fees whatsoever, just because of how unclear the statute is written. So this one brings the EV trucks in to the fold so they can at least start paying the EV registration fee as well. The reason it's a little higher than the regular EVs, because take for instance the Cybertruck, they weigh about 6,600 pounds up to 7,000 pounds. They are quite heavy. That is more wear and tear on our roads. So that's why the EV registration, and the same thing with the F-150 Lightnings. They're a little heavier. It's more wear and tear. So that's why their registration fee is a little higher. But again, right now, EV trucks only pay the normal registration fee that a gas vehicle pays, and that's the $40 registration fee. So the second part would bring those trucks into the statute. The third part is right now, the totality of the EV registration fee goes into the state highway fund. However, the motor fuels tax is broken up, as the revisor says, 66% into the highway fund, 33% into the special city county highway fund. So this takes that formula, since this is supposed to be a supplement for motor fuels tax, and puts that formula on the EV registration fees, so our special city county highway fund can get some of those funds like they would if it was the motor fuels tax. So that's what the third portion of this bill does. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I will stand for any questions.
Thank you, Representative. I'll fire off the first question. Do you divide the special city and county highway fund the same as the current law, where 57% goes to counties and 43% to the cities?
Yeah, whatever formula is used for the motor fuels tax should be the formula used on this. I don't think this gets into specifics of that. It just copies the exact language of the motor fuels tax. So if that's how the motor fuels tax is, then yes.
Excellent. Committee questions. Senator Clays.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Hoheisel, for coming with this. I have to say that I was loaded to bear to push back a little bit on this, but you did educate me a little bit today. I didn't realize that the EVs are not paying that $40. Is that correct?
Yeah, that base registration fee, it's $30 to $40 based on weight. I believe the threshold is 4,500 pounds. However, as you know, as an EV owner, EV vehicles are a little heavier, so they're always on that north side of the 4,500 pounds. But yes, that base registration fee does not apply to them.
Okay, yeah, and I'm a big fan of transparency, so in that vein, I do own a Tesla, if that does sway anybody at all, but
Not a Cybertruck, is it?
it's not a Cybertruck, it's the Model Y. But I do have some other questions about this, but I don't want to take up all the committee's time necessarily. But have you guys at all looked at metering the electricity itself and taxing that at those? Because, you know, you're only capturing the us local EV owners, people driving through our great state are getting off the hook.
And that's an excellent point. We do have a bill in House Transportation now that addresses that issue at the public charging stations and applying some kind of user fee or tax at the public charging stations. I think they're still refining where that fee needs to be to both be fair and collect what should be collected. But there are ongoing discussions, and I believe maybe not this session, maybe next session, that you will see movement on that.
Very good. Thank you very much. Can I ask one more, Mr. Chair? So it's actually not an ask. Actually, I was going to call bullpucky on one of your statements here. I think the heavy vehicle argument is a little bit misleading. So I did a little research on it myself, and you know the difference is typically 400 to 800 pounds, which is maybe a couple of Chiefs linemen in your car with you. That seems like a very low amount, considering that. Over the entire size of the vehicle. And again, in my research, I found the only thing I find is this thing called the fourth power rule, but that applies to commercial trucks, not passenger vehicles. But I did find an interesting fact. Did you know a single 80,000-pound semi causes more road damage than 9,600 cars? And then they put all the cars together. But again, I think there's just a marginal difference between EVs and ICE vehicles. I think it's statistically negligible. But if road damage from weight was really our concern, I mean, if that's what folks here that are proponents are suggesting, then why wouldn't we just have a tax on, the wine moms driving their SUVs? You have them paying more for those larger vehicles versus the hippies in their little VW bugs. If that is indeed the case, and that's the concern.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, if I may address that, I will say that I will point out that we do kind of, in a way, again, the $30 to $40 registration fee is based on weight, $4,500 pound threshold. So in a way they do. There are other states that do base your registration fees on the weight of the vehicles. That is not something that we, of course, do here in Kansas. I will say, though, I believe there's a study, there was in the House at least, I believe it was from Nebraska, somewhere in Nebraska, that showed the effects of weight of EVs on roads and kind of counters what your claim is. I will say as well, 800 pounds to a 4,500 pound vehicle, I mean, that's still a 20%, almost 20%, I guess, weight difference. So I don't think it's a huge deal, but I do think you can make the claim that more weight on a road, the wear and tear over and over again does impact the roads.
Any further questions for Representative Hoheisel? Seeing none, thank you.
Appreciate it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Committee, next up, we have Catherine Magana, Legislative Liaison for KDOT. Committee, we will probably hold questions till the end of the proponents. Thank you for being here, Catherine.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Catherine Magana. I'm the Legislative Liaison for the Kansas Department of Transportation. I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here providing proponent testimony in support of House Bill 2121. KDOT is supportive of this bill for two reasons. First, for the increased fee parity that it would be providing between different vehicle fuel types, as well as the additional revenue it would be providing to the State Highway Fund and the Special and City County Highway Fund to support transportation in our state. Based on our vehicle registration data from KDOR's implementation of HB 2121 as amended by the House, it would generate about $500,000 for the State Highway Fund in fiscal year 2026 and $2.2 million for the Special City County Highway Fund in fiscal year 2026 for an estimated total of about $2.7 million annually. We believe that consistent and sustainable revenues are the key to supporting the State Highway Fund and managing our transportation to keep Kansans moving forward. The last time the motor fuels tax was adjusted was in 2003, so that was over 2 decades ago. And since then, Kansas has seen steady motor fuels tax revenues, but the number of vehicles miles traveled has increased by about 11% nationally. And vehicle fuel efficiency has also increased by about 43% over that same time period. So it is no secret that we are seeing vehicles get more fuel efficient every year. As we see hybrid and electric vehicles become a bigger part of our registered fleet of vehicles in the state, the amount of revenue collected from the sale of those motor fuels is expected to stay steady or even decline in the coming years. And this, coupled with inflation, can result in a continued loss of the purchasing power of that revenue that's being generated and an erosion of our ability to invest in our transportation system. So increasing the vehicle registration fees with this bill would be a way to offset that and move closer to creating fee parity between different vehicle fuel types. Our registration data from April of 2024 shows that there were about 10,000 battery electric vehicles across the state, nearly 2,000 plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, and about 33,000 hybrid electric vehicles registered in the state of Kansas. And on your testimony, you will see a chart of Kansas and our neighboring states that shows what the current fee registration fees are for battery, plug-in hybrid, and hybrid electric vehicles, as well as if they tack on that standard registration or not, and if that is additional or separate. We found that 39 states have increased or additional registration fees ranging from about $50 to $250 annually. And so the remaining states also have their registration fees based on different varying factors like age, weight, and location. We're aware that KLRD also produced some analysis last month looking at the fees in other states if members are looking for any more information about what other states are doing. And we're also happy to work with the committee and interested stakeholders on adjusting those fees or just standing behind increases to just reach more parity between the fees. Appreciate the opportunity to provide testimony, and I'll stand for questions at the end.
Thank you. We're holding questions to the end. Appreciate your testimony. Committee, I will note that you do have KLRD's memos and the new memo on taxing electrical vehicle charging with your testimony. Next up, we have Brian Posler, Executive Director of Fuel True. Welcome back to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for committee for hearing our testimony. I am Brian Posler, represent Fuel True, which is the statewide nonprofit trade association. We represent all the fuel distributors as well as convenience stores, and there are over 2,000 fuel retail locations across the state, placed in every single one of your districts. So we're happy to be here. For us, my members, this bill, we support this mainly because it's just a matter of fairness. All these vehicles, these electric vehicles, are heavier than their internal combustion engine counterparts, whether that's 10% more, 15% more, even up to 30% more in some cases, depending on the model. Every additional pound produces more wear and tear on the roads, and yet, because they are exempted from paying the fuel taxes that all the ICE counterparts have to pay, then they are subsidized essentially by all the other drivers who drive internal combustion engines and have to pay those fuel taxes. Over 39 states already do a differential, so this would just be helping ensure that as we look to the future, the market share of EVs is just going to increase. A bunch of my members are starting to invest heavily in high-speed chargers, particularly along the interstate, but it'll continue to grow. And so we're preparing to be the location where people can fuel and get what they need. But as more and more drivers drive EVs, that means a smaller percentage of drivers will remain who will be paying the fuel taxes that will then take care of all the roads. And so it's going to just continue to exacerbate over time. So for those reasons, we support this very reasonable set of increases. One other note is that even with these increases, we'll still be behind a number of other states, and this differential will quickly be out of date. Texas, for example, already charges over $200 as the fee, and so we're not even keeping pace with some of the other states that have larger differentials than we do. So with that, I'll take questions at the appropriate time, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Appreciate your testimony. Next up, Michael White, Kansas Contractors. Welcome back to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Michael White, Executive Director of the Kansas Contractors Association. You have my written testimony. I'm not going to read it. I would just be saying a lot of what's already been said, but I do want to point you to a few of the attachments I put in my testimony, particularly just as you guys have heard and you know from presentations from KDOT, motor fuels tax in the state of Kansas is flat. It's not growing or really decreasing at this point. It's staying flat, but obviously as prices increase with inflation, the purchasing power of that motor fuels tax and registration fees is decreasing. And so that's really what's brought us, as much as anything today, to be a proponent for this bill, because obviously we need to the extent possible, make it fair for everybody that's on the roads and what they're paying. What I want to really point out is the second attachment I attached. This is from data that Kansas Department of Transportation has supplied in presentations, but it's the annual motor fuels tax and fees in Kansas. And you'll see they've got the EV, the hybrid, and the internal combustion engine data. This is based on 12,000 miles traveled and what those fees that are collected in motor fuels taxes and registration fees. With the passage of this bill, obviously this would even out and be more parity amongst all three categories. So the other piece I would just point out has been mentioned. The data shows consumers, manufacturers, the federal government, everybody wants more efficient vehicles. I mean, even consumers want more efficient vehicles. So I've included some presentations that ARPA, that we're a member of ARPA at the national level, that they've provided on where the federal government is looking at standards moving forward in terms of efficiency and miles per gallon. And then currently, the last attachment I attached was the miles per gallon for cars. The data shows that that's rising. Cars were becoming more efficient. And so obviously this is what's creating the disparity in the fees and the motor fuels that's collected for the infrastructure. So that's what I wanted to point out this morning, Mr. Chairman, and I'll stand for questions at the appropriate time.
Thank you. Next up, we have Wendy Stark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'm Wendy Stark with the League of Kansas Municipalities, and I won't repeat what a lot of people have said of previous conferees. What I will state is that the League has no position on whether the legislature should increase the registration fee, but if the legislature does decide to increase the fee, we support any additional funds being deposited into the state highway fund. And this bill does have that 66-33 split, and so we do support this bill. And I'd be happy to stand for questions at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, John Federico. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John Federico, Federico Consulting, proudly representing General Motors. And we stand in support of House Bill 2121, which is a movement from our position, from a neutral position in the House Transportation Committee. As a reminder, General Motors Fairfax Assembly plant has been producing world-class vehicles since 1945. In those 80 years, they are now at a threshold of 2,000 workers, and over the course of the last decade or so have invested $1.5 billion into that Kansas City, Kansas plant. Little interesting fact is that the Fairfax Assembly Plant was the first industrial facility to operate dual purpose, making both automobiles and jet fighters back in the 40s. We were particularly, as Chairman Hoheisel mentioned, we're particularly excited at the most recent news that GM will make another investment of $391 million to retool their plants to make the next generation all-electric Chevrolet Bolt. It is with that commitment in mind that General Motors always takes a keen interest in any legislation that might serve as a barrier to consumers buying an electric vehicle. But having said that, Mr. Chairman, GM does believe that every driver should pay their fair share and that there should be a goal of parity among rates set for all the myriad of drivers using Kansas roads. We are appreciative of the consideration afforded General Motors in the amendment that was offered in the House Transportation Committee, reducing the fee on all electric vehicle registrations from $175 to $165. We would respectfully ask that you preserve that language should you choose to advance House Bill 2121. Happy to stand for questions at the appropriate time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Committee, questions for the conferees? No questions. Someone who may want to take it, I don't care who. Do you believe the parity on the electric hybrids and the plug-in electrics is fair?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I think as you look at the data and it shows when you really look at it that when it comes to motor fuels and EVs, these are very fair registration fees. And in our opinion, these are very much create parity amongst the three classes of vehicles. And to the extent that there have been, as Mr. Federico mentioned, we think this is a great bill. It's agreed upon bill. The fees were higher in the original bill. Through conversations with both GM and others, the agreed upon fees were put in this bill, and I think that's why they're in agreement with this. They see the parity in them as well. So we feel like that this is a very fair bill when it comes to the registration fees for all classes of vehicles.
Thank you. Senator Corson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I received some emails, and I didn't get a chance to research it myself, but the emails purported that to state that owners of EV vehicles drive less than owners of internal combustion engine vehicles, and I wanted to just see if there was any data that would either corroborate that or disprove that. Again, it was something that folks have reached out to me about. I haven't researched it, but that was a claim that was made to me, is that they maybe don't drive the full 12,000 miles that this is based off of, and I didn't know what kind of the best literature out there said on that front.
So, Senator, I think the best I could do is I can reach out to my national organizations. They may have data on that, and just see what they have to say. That is not something that's been brought to my attention through those organizations as we look at these type of pieces of legislation.
Jill, do we have anything in the memos on that?
Jill Shelley, Legislative Reserve. Yes, Mr. Chairman, at the end of the EV memo and also at the end of the second memorandum on taxes on electric vehicle charging, there is very little data that I could find with regard to that. There is certainly some suggestion that it's lower, but it's hard to pin down the data on it. But at the end of that second memorandum on the taxes on the charging, there's what I was able to find in the time available.
Mr. Chair, if I might contribute to this conversation, I did a little bit of research on this as well, and I would say, yes, there is a differential between the miles traveled by EV owners versus internal combustion engine owners, but that gap has been diminishing. So the article that I read attributed it primarily to concerns about range, and so as the charger network develops and grows and chargers are more plentiful, the concerns about, fears about running out of fuel for EVs diminishes, and therefore the mileage gap is narrowing. So it is still a gap, but it has a narrower gap than it was in earlier years.
Thank you. Senator Clays.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not one of the conferees, I suppose, I'm sorry, one of the testimony folks, but I did look this up, Senator Corson. It was a George Washington University study, and it did find, using information from the Department of Engineering and National Renewable Energy Laboratory, they did find that they drove shorter. It was 11,642 miles versus 12,979 miles, and as the last speaker just said, that was attributed largely to range anxiety. So.
Well, that's helpful. Well, maybe we'll have Senator Claves can moonlight as a researcher for us, because that was really helpful. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Just to let you know, Kansas Legislative Research says it's between 11,000 and 14,000 in the memo. Committee, further questions? Committee note we have written testimony. Proponents from Economic Lifelines, Travis Lowe and Claudia Hissong from Kansas Farm Bureau. Is there anybody else wishing to testify oral? Seeing none, we'll turn our attention to the opponents. First up, Zach Pastora, Kansas Sierra Club. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the committee. Senators, good morning. Good to see you. I'm Zach Pastora, new director and proud lobbyist for the Kansas chapter of Sierra Club. We have nearly 5,000 members across the state. We're environmentalists, and many of our members do drive electric vehicles for the benefit for the pollution, less pollution with those vehicles. And so we stand opposed to House Bill 2121 for a number of different reasons, but I'll focus on one specific, which is why we ultimately think this bill needs a tune-up, and that's because overlooks a critical assumption, which has already been aired out in front of you. That is, electric vehicle drivers drive fewer miles on the road. So when we talk about parity, when accounting for that, if you're charging them per the gas tax, the equivalency, but they're driving less miles on the road, fewer miles, then actually, proportionally, they're paying more. Okay, and so I did include this study in my first round of testimony on the House side. I said, well, we don't buy the math. But I didn't do the math myself until before this committee. And so when I did the math here, it actually works out that the gas tax equivalency should be about $100 if you take the average gas tax would create in terms of revenue for the highways. So if you add that $100 to on top of the vehicle registration fee for cars, that'd be $130 for all electric cars, $140 for all electric trucks, and then I said for all electric motorcycles, about $25 would be fair compared to $30. And then we would urge you to eliminate dividing hybrid vehicles and into the two categories and suggest a $75 fee be a reasonable compromise. But let me kind of show my work as far as where I end up with those fees. And all this is in my testimony. We got the green tree in the upper right so you can identify it with it. But we also have the graphic from that study, the George Washington University study, and the National Renewable Energy Lab that did odometer readings from 13 million used cars, 12 million used SUVs, and then compared them, as well as 5 other studies previously, compared them, and on average, they can say that all electric cars, non-Tesla, drive 39% less than conventional vehicles. If you drive a Tesla, 25% less if you're an all-electric. Interestingly enough, for hybrid and plug-in hybrid vehicles is about the same use of the roads in terms of miles driven. So that's why the Sierra Club decided it was, if we're talking about real parity, that the fees that proposed for hybrid and electric vehicles can roughly stay about the same if we factor in the $100. But all electric vehicles is overpriced at $165 right now per the House bill. We made this claim, again, in the House committee. The number did come down. We would urge you to consider factoring in this assumption that we bring it down to what we think is a pretty fair balance there. Of course, we think that Tesla vehicles probably don't constitute half of all electric vehicles on the road. Don't know that for sure, but if we average the 39% with the 25%, just have one all-electric class, then it should be 32% is what we came up to. So just for that, I think that's kind of a pretty fair balance in talking about these prices on the licensing fees. But I'll just say this, a couple more items if I may. Again, was pointed out, we haven't raised the gas tax for everyone in 20 years. That's 96% of the cars on the road. We were here 5 years ago when we said, hey, electric vehicles should pay their fair share, and here we are again, yet we haven't done the same with the other vehicles that use our roads. And it was mentioned that what about the heavier duty vehicles, the heavier weight vehicles? That's a great point. We said that 5 years ago. We're going to say it again. If you're talking about actual destruction to the roads, the proportional amount should be on those heavier duty vehicles. Yes, they use more gas, but is it proportional to the deterioration of the roads that they're causing? If 9,600 times more destruction of the roads is right, are they doing that, making up for that in the amount of gas that they pay? We'd argue not. And then, of course, all the other benefits of electric vehicles on the road. These are new vehicles, often pay higher sales taxes, less noise, less pollution. Remember after the pandemic when we had the clear skies over our cities for a change, less smog, it was nice to see that it was nice to see the clear skies, but also be reminded that these vehicles produce a lot of pollution that we absorb at our health and bodies every day. So don't want to go on too much longer. Just want to say electric vehicles don't get the air pollution benefit factored in their costs. Right now, I think there's a federal subsidy, but we'll see how long that lasts. But there's no state incentive for ordinary individuals to collect a rebate for the benefit that they're producing to our Kansas health and environment, which is less air pollution. So I'll stop there. Thank you very much for your attention. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Tad Kamar. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Good morning. I am Tad Kamar from Big Springs, Kansas. I am testifying against HB 2121 because the bill would make battery electric vehicle owners pay an annual license fee of $165, which is more than 4 or 5 times the amount that gas-powered vehicles pay, which is $30 or $40, depending on the vehicle's weight. I agree. EV owners should pay more to help maintain our roads, but 4 or 5 times more is clearly not fair and is punitive. We already pay $100. People should not be punished for buying an EV. EVs should actually be encouraged and not discouraged because they don't emit harmful pollutants that gas-powered vehicles emit, including not only carbon dioxide, but various other gases and soot that contribute to serious respiratory diseases and even cancer, among also highly poisonous carbon monoxide. EVs are quiet, so they emit no noise pollution. They avoid the environmental cost of oil, drilling, refining, transporting. These major benefits of EVs should be considered when determining a fair annual license fee to charge. Also, EVs are often more expensive, at least somewhat more expensive than their gas-powered counterparts, so the EV owners pay higher sales and personal property taxes. And by using electricity to charge the cars, they also pay sales taxes or fees on the electricity they purchase. So these higher taxes and fees should also be considered when determining the annual license fee to make it fair. Also, we've talked about EV drivers not driving quite as far per year as the gas-powered vehicles, so they cause much less wear and tear on the roads. That's another factor to consider in determining the appropriate fee. The current license fee of $100 is 2.5 to 3 times the amount that gas-powered vehicles pay. Considering all these factors, it would be very unfair to increase the EV fee even more. It already was increased to 100 several years ago, and now this is another increase. If more revenue is needed for our roads, please consider fairer sources of revenue also, such as increasing taxes on the large, heavy trucks we've already talked about that really tear up the roads. For these reasons, I urge you to vote against HB 2121. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee questions for the opponents? Seeing none. Committee note that we do have written-only testimony by Daryl Hart, Lori Lawrence, and Joseph Madden. Are there any further opponents wishing to testify in person? Seeing none, committee, we do have one written neutral in your packet by Jason Carmichael. We also have the 2 memos from KLRD. Jill, did you want to give a quick briefing on those, or just an explanation?
Good morning. Thank you, committee. Again, Jill Shelley with Legislative Research. We do have 2 memoranda ready for you today. One is the state's fees for electric and hybrid vehicles. That will allow you to compare the current and proposed fees across the states. We do note that the Kansas fee is in lieu of other registration fees, whereas all of the other fees noted specific to EVs, as Representative Hoheisel noted, are on top of regular registration fees. We've also provided some information on how the base registration amounts are computed in those states. It could be based on weight, vehicle age, the value of the vehicle. In South Carolina, even the age of the registrant, or some combination of the above, and those are on there. The applicability of fees to other alternative fuels is also covered in that, because there are many, and then we provide the list of the resources from which we drew that information. Taxes on electric vehicle charging. The question posed to us for that was, what's the equivalency? How do you compute it? What have states done with the specific charge on the charge at the EV charging station, such as a per kilowatt hour charge? Most of them have been 3 cents per kilowatt hour, and on page 2 and 3 of that memorandum, which will be published on our website today, that's discussed on what goes into those bills. It also discusses what other topics related to that are addressed in the bills of those other states. And also questions were raised about the fiscal effects of those charges. This section of the memorandum, I believe, is going to provide information for people who want to do their own back of the envelope or more detailed calculations on what should go into the fees. And it gives you, as legislators, some options of what factors to consider as you look at those. And again, there is a small section in there about the miles driven, as that factors into the fee and how that would affect revenues. I'll be happy to answer questions.
Committee, questions for Jill on the memos? Seeing none, thank you for your work.
If I may, Mr. Chairman?
You may.
We did get a question in the House. The memorandum on vehicle EV fees focuses on passenger vehicles. But we did find information that commercial vehicles are imposed, EV fees are imposed in Georgia, Oklahoma, South Dakota, and Tennessee. And specific fees regarding EV motorcycles are charged in Kentucky, Nebraska, North Dakota, and Texas.
Committee, that concludes the hearing on House Bill 2121. Adam, would you?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 2201 would provide for the FFA distinctive license plate. The Kansas FFA Foundation, supported by the Kansas FFA Foundation. The usual requirements that there would be a local use royalty fee, the amount of $25 up to $100 set by the Kansas FFA Foundation. Normal requirements requiring a guarantee of an initial issuance of 250 plates and payment costs up to $5,000. And all local use royalty payments would be made to the county treasurers, and that payments from the royalty fund would be made on a monthly basis to the Kansas FFA Foundation.
Committee, it is conference time. I'd like to propose an amendment to change the effective date of this bill to the register. I'll make that as a motion. Do we have a second? Seconded by Senator Klemp. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, committee, what's your pleasure on the bill? Senator Cluse.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move we pass out 2201 favorably as amended.
For the motion, do we have a second? Seconded by Senator Bowers. Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed? Motion carried. 2201 as amended. It's headed to the floor favorable. Committee, you might note we will probably have, just for next week, we will have meeting on call with chair for Monday. I'm not intending to meet, but in case we need it, it'll be on there as that. We do have a presentation for Tuesday. Is there any further business to come before the committee? Seeing none, we are